The Play Action podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
Welcome to the Play Action podcast. Katherine Fitzgerald. I'm Lance Lysowski. Katherine, Bills lost a game.
They did. It was inevitable. I don't think they were going to go undefeated this season, but I think it's still frustrating for the team the way it happened.
Yeah, no, of course. Like New England, I think came in a little underrated. Like Drake May's good. Yeah. I think he really showed people his first primetime game that he is. And the Bills, the issues they were having, eventually it was going to cost them. It did. And now it's all about how they respond. We'll start with the offense. I think that there's, especially with this team, everybody's really circling the problems at this point in the season, even though they're 4-1. And the receivers were a big topic of discussion, and it became even bigger one based on Sean McDermott's press conference on Monday.
Yes, so Keon Coleman did not play the first series of the game, and Sean McDermott said it was for disciplinary reasons. It was a coach's decision. This is not the first time that's happened with Coleman. His rookie season, he missed the beginning of a game as well, again, for disciplinary reasons. And we haven't had a chance to talk to Keon yet at this point in the week, but I don't know. I think it is troubling that year two, he's going through this again. And I get it. There's growing pains for a young guy, but you can tell that the team is not thrilled.
No, they shouldn't be. And his teammates and coaches spent the previous 6 weeks really talking about how much he'd grown and how much he'd matured and how he had shown them that he was ready to take that next step, not only on the field, but off the field. Playing in the NFL, there's a lot that goes into it, being on time for meetings, being attentive, being reliable. And they need him to be reliable. He's a very important part of this offense. So I'm sure for everybody involved, it's frustrating. Like you said, we haven't heard from him yet, but I am curious to hear what his response is and how he handles it, because when you're a team with these expectations and their goals, you can't have that going on.
No, and I think just when there's already kind of some questions about what's going on with the receiving core, you don't want to add in an off the field, something like that to the mix.
Yeah, he dealt with the injury last year. They obviously weren't thrilled with how he played when he came back from that. So this was a big stepping year for him. How is he going to handle it? And we'll see. We don't know what happened. So it's not one of those things I want to just jump to conclusions with.
Of course.
But, it's especially the fumble, the first time he touched the ball in that game too. It's just consistency has been missing for him on the field, and it's the part off the field as well that they're going to have to address. Coming out of that game, though, what did you make of the receivers overall? Because that is, again, I think that with the way Josh Allen didn't have his best game, everybody wanted to point to the receivers, especially since all the talk about the Patriots cornerbacks and how good they were in that game.
Yeah, we're talking about separation again. I think what's tricky is that it's kind of themes that keep just coming up again and again, and they haven't solved them yet. Now, the big thing for me was the turnovers. You're not going to win if you turn the ball over 3 times. Not usually, at least. But I think just kind of you look at what the receivers were or were not able to do, when you count in the entire offense, Dalton Kincaid had a monster game. But no one else was able to have the production that they needed for this team.
They need somebody to step up, whether that's Coleman, whether it's Joshua Palmer, Khalil Shakir. They're dropping passes in situations they shouldn't be dropping passes.
Yeah.
And to me, I understand. I agree with Sean McDermott. Yes, you look at the offense, Katherine, they had scored 30 points in every other game, but the play calling, I thought they did get too cute, and trying to hand the ball to Dawson Knox on when they fumbled. That's the definition of too cute, in my opinion.
Was a little silly.
Yeah. You've got one of the best running backs in the league so far this season, and he touched the ball 4 times in the first quarter. You got to get James Cook more involved. He's got to be on the field more often, even though it was 74% of the snaps. Give the ball to your best players and make them show you they can stop you.
Yeah, we hear from Joe Brady all the time about how he needs to get players in a rhythm.
Yeah.
And obviously that wasn't happening with James early on in this game. But I think even to go back to the receivers, even if you're spreading the ball around, even if the mantra of the team is everybody eats, you still need someone to step up.
Yeah, and penalties were an issue again. It's strange because even Connor McGovern was dealing with the hand injury the entire game, but uncharacteristic of him to take 3 penalties, I believe it was in a game.
Very surprising, yeah.
And what do you make of the penalties? Because overall, you think about this team, they don't they don't usually shoot themselves in the foot. They certainly didn't last season, and we've just seen too much of that the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It was a big point of contention for Bills fans, I would say, about the refereeing of the game. I think they were a little quick to flag things, but I would also say some of them were warranted. So there's balance there. It wasn't everything was wrong or everything was correct. But it slowed down the game for sure. People were saying it was a hard game to watch from that standpoint. But kind of to bring it back to the Bills, if they're going to get called for that stuff, you have to clean it up.
You certainly do. I'm with you. Some of them were obvious, penalties, but you can nitpick it all you want. But I think that when they get themselves in those situations, then the play calling has to be better. You can't call flea flicker. It's tough to criticize an offense. It's still statistically one of the best in the league, but just some of what they did, considering the opponent, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
It is hard to talk about the Bills' defense without talking about injuries. We, at this point, when we're recording, Matt Milano is week to week with his pec injury that he re-aggravated last game. That's so frustrating for this team.
Yeah, when he's been on the field, he's been so good. He had 6 tackles in the first half against New England. And you look at the schedule, yes, it's not the most difficult in the league, certainly. But Atlanta, they got Bijan Robinson. They've got a quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., who can run the ball. Then you look at Carolina, it's sort of similar in terms of the athletes that they have, the skilled players they have. So when you lose Milano, Dorian Williams is day-to-day with his leg injury. They signed Bale Inspector back to the practice squad. Fans weren't thrilled about that one, Katherine. They need to get healthy because regardless, this team's still having trouble tackling. And now after the Patriots are able to throw the ball, I assume the Falcons are going to try to do the same thing against the Bills based on what they saw.
Classic copycat league.
Yeah.
The good news is it sounds like Ed Oliver is trending up. He has been trending up for a long time per Sean McDermott, but it sounds like maybe he's finally going to be back. And I think that would be very big for this Bills defense.
Yeah, credit to the guys who have filled in, like Fedarian Mathis, Zion Logue. Those guys gave them some good reps. Was it perfect? No, but they were put in a very difficult situation, especially with TJ Sanders also missing the Patriots game. So not only, I guess the one benefit of not having Ed Oliver, it was a massive loss for this team, Katherine, was Deion Walker. The more reps that he got, you can just tell how proud Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich are of Walker, because they really had to. It was a big project to get him to the point that he's gotten to.
No, I think it's been really key seeing what he's been able to do when he's had those opportunities, and there's still room for him to grow, but I think he's making a splash early on, and that's so critical for a rookie.
Landon Jackson made his debut, and and Greg Rousseau had a really great start to that Patriots game. Again, with Atlanta, Atlanta's had some really bad losses. They're one of those really strange teams
Very strange.
that they probably should be doing better than they are. So that's going to be interesting to watch going in. They've had a bye week to prepare for this game. But that pass rush, if you look at the analytics, it's looked pretty good, Katherine, but they haven't finished. And getting Ed Oliver back and getting somebody like Landon Jackson involved a little bit, they're trying to find a solution to try to get to these quarterbacks and finish the way that they just haven't been able to against the Patriots and even the Dolphins game, where Tua was able to get out of the pocket and make plays.
Yeah, I think they need to ask a little more out of the pass rush still, even though there has been some, bright spots on it for sure. But I think just finishing would be key.
And the corners are going to be a topic of discussion, especially while Maxwell Harrison's not available. That was their worst game by far, I thought, against the Patriots. And Benford's been a little up and down, but he's facing the best receiver. That's going to happen. They need Tre'Davious White to be more consistent. He's been good against the run, but in coverage, it's been a challenge for him. And I think that teams have known that if you make him cover in space, he's not going to have the speed to keep up. So he's really relying on instincts and knowledge, and their safeties have to give him a little bit more support.
Yeah, I think, we were talking about the cornerback situation and the secondary even at large for a while before the season started. And it's been, like you said, up and down for the group. I think part of it, you look at the safeties, Cole Bishop still working through some stuff. I think, you ask his coaches and they're realistic of, he is a starter for the first time fully this season and he's going through some stuff, but they're seeing signs of improvement. I think it's just about that consistency now.
Yeah, he's making play. Like, the plays are there. You see the flashes that really show how talented he is, whether it's the interception against the Saints, some of the tackles that he's made. Just, you can't miss tackles. Like, he missed a tackle, I think it was in the fourth quarter in that Patriots game. And they just need a little bit more from that group, because you look at the Falcons, they got Drake London, they got Darnell Mooney, they've got Kyle Pitts. This is a team that, they do have arguably the best running back in the league. They're going to throw the ball. The Bills are second in the league in passing yards allowed per game, but they've also faced the third fewest attempts. So teams just haven't been throwing because they've known that, well, we can run the ball. Why would we really force the issue? Well, now I think we're going to start to see some teams really try to test that secondary, and they've got to be up for the challenge. Well, Katherine, you've covered this team for several seasons, so you've seen bye weeks earlier in the year, later in the year. What have you noticed, or what have you heard players talk about in terms of, is it better to have a bye in week 7? Is it better to have it later on? I think it could be a case-by-case basis depending on injuries, health of the group, where they're at. But I'm curious, which is better?
It's a good question, because I think they haven't had one just like smack in the middle of the season in a long time. It's been either, wow, this is an early bye, or this is so late. So there hasn't been like that just, nice kind of Goldilocks middle of the season bye. But I think it's season dependent. This does feel very early, to have the Falcons and then to have the bye week right off of it. A small thing is, I think, it's been since maybe my first year here when they played the Titans on Monday Night Football, and then go into the bye, you lose a day of your bye week when you've got the Monday Night Football game. So I think that's something they might be noticing of like, bye week's a little shorter.
Yeah.
But I think the timing for this rendition of the Bills is good as far as what they're dealing with at injuries.
Milano gets an extra week to get healthy. Some of these other guys, we'll see about TJ Sanders, Dorian Williams' status for Monday Night Football, but also they're the suspended guys.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's been easy to sort of overlook them, but based on what we saw, especially from Michael Hoyt during training camp and preseason games, Katherine, he's going to be somebody they really rely on. And he's not going to be an every down player, but he's somebody that hear the coaches talk about and your teammates talk about, and they think that he's going to come in and really help not only their pass rush, but this is a guy he's big for an edge rusher, so he can help you with the run.
I think, we've talked about before how this team's just going to have a different makeup a few weeks into the season, and we're finally getting close to that of what are they going to look like when these suspended guys are back, when some of the injured guys are back, when this defense is maybe what they thought it was going to be at the start of the season. Again, we always knew the guys would be suspended for 6 weeks, but you have to anticipate what it's like to get them back, and it's getting close.
And just generally, like, guys just get a break. I mean, Josh Allen, like Sean McDermott said on Monday, he's sore. He took some hits in that game. Dalton Kincaid came up, and seemed to have his arm bothering him in the second half in that game. And fans just have to wince, like the two guys who are very important for this team's success. So you need to get healthy, but also you can't overlook this game. I mean, the Falcons, I know the record is what the record is, and Michael Penix Jr. has been very inconsistent, but this is a talented team that at the start of the year, if you looked at especially what they did when Penix stepped in as the starter last season, you would have thought they could win the division. They could be like a serious playoff contender. It just hasn't happened for them yet. And I think a lot of the criticism down there has been a lot of play calling. They're relying on young pass rushers, but they had extra time to prepare for this game, and it's on the road. It's going to be a very interesting one to see how the Bills respond.
Yeah, talk about an early bye. It's so early for the Falcons.
Yeah.
But I think just giving them that extra time to prepare for the Bills, I'm interested to see what it looks like of just, you have so much time to kind of prepare and you can almost overthink it. But I think also just kind of seeing how they're able to evaluate with that time, they could maximize it for sure.
The Bills have been very successful coming off a loss since Sean McDermott became coach. I'd be curious to hear his explanation to what's allowed them to reset so quickly. And for me, I'm very interested to see how this offense, what it looks like, how they try to get after the Falcons, because, Joe Brady wasn't happy. Josh Allen wasn't happy. There's a lot of guys on that side of the ball who knew that they should have done better than they did against the Patriots. So how do they respond? How do they take advantage? Especially we talked about Keon Coleman, James Cook. How are they going to get him more involved? So, first time we really saw that offense not score 30 points. So how do they try to counter what the Falcons are going to try to do?
Yeah, and I think, like we've been saying, the Falcons are so interesting because it's hard to figure out what to make of them right now. I think I was high on them coming into this season, and it's their division is what it is.
Yeah.
An interesting one for sure. But I think just kind of you look at how up and down they've been, and they don't have their identity yet.
No, they don't, which coaching staff's been there for a little bit, so it's a little interesting how that becomes an issue. They lost to Carolina in a pretty bad way, but we'll see how it looks. Because you've got the Falcons, you got the Panthers, then you got the Chiefs. And a lot of really good receivers coming up, some really good running backs. So again, like we started the year, and I think a lot of other fan bases, I've seen some discourse online about how the Bills have the easiest schedule. How do they always get off so easy? It's not that easy. It's the NFL. The Saints showed us that a couple of weeks ago, so you have to come out and play well.
I'll be interested to see what they do with Bijan Robinson, just what he's been able to do, what he's able to add to this Falcons offense. It'll be, we talked about what the Bills defense is looking like. So how do they contain him?
Lefty quarterback who's also mobile. They've had trouble with mobile quarterbacks, letting them get out of the pocket and make throws on the run. And, as much as we could sit here and nitpick corner play, like those guys can't cover receivers forever. So if your pass rush isn't getting to the quarterback, putting a lot of pressure on Trey White and Christian Benford to cover. So see how they respond.
Should be a very fascinating game. We'll be back next week for the bye week. The Bills are off, but we are not. So we will be back for the Play Action podcast. Make sure you're subscribing wherever you listen and reading along at buffalonews.com.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.